first have you introduce yourself before we jump right into all of this, because there's
All
so
right.
much for us to talk about. So yeah, if you could just tell everyone your name and your age, if you don't mind,
Sure.
and then we can kind of go from there.
Okay. I'm Sammy, or Samuel professionally, with the Ashe Academy. I'm the executive director, and we have been around for close to 2.5 years now. It's been a passion project that turned into, something great. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to be here, and you're gonna tell my story.
I love it. So we met just so that the people watching know because I have an addiction to iced tea. And I was in the afternoon getting my iced tea from a coffee shop, and I walked in, and at the pickup end of the counter you were sitting there with two of your friends and or colleagues, I'm not quite sure, but I just, being me, introduced myself and kind of told you about these interviews and said that
Mhm.
I'd like to talk to any or all of you, and we just have kept in contact. That was, I think, just around the first of the year. So it's been a busy time since then, and trying to connect was a little difficult with the world the way it is. And so I'm glad we were able to finally do
Mhm.
this. I'm very excited.
So a little backstory of when we met. That was actually a reconnection of us as friends. So we were kind of having an awkward reconnection, healing moment. And I strategically got there late so that they could meet up first. So when you walked over, I was like, "Oh, like we're about to be in a space," but like it was just before we had gotten into anything. So but yeah, that just goes to show this is the kind of stuff that I get myself into all the time. A lot of
I
healing.
love it. Well, I'm so sorry, and I clearly did not read the room, but I mean, I was kind of, the way that, so everyone understands, the way that the table that you guys were sitting at is literally like you're almost on top of that table trying to get your beverage from the counter,
Mhm.
and so I'm almost in your guys' lap, so I almost felt compelled to say something. And I think the least awkward thing to say was to introduce myself and talk about the interviews rather than, can I sit with you?
But it made sense. I'm very happy that you have stayed diligent in reaching out because I do have a story to tell. I was just not ready to go ahead and tell it. So yeah, that's why we're here today because of your diligence.
Well, I'm really glad, and we're here today because in the few minutes that we talked at Starbucks, so many of the things that you told me in that brief few minutes um, of awkwardness was so in line with things that I'm interested in, and I think that I've mentioned that to you before. But we, beyond this interview, we're going to have so much to talk about, and hopefully we can do some
Excited.
really great things together.
Awesome.
I think our visions meet in a lot of places.
Perfect.
So I want to ask you, I usually start all of these interviews by asking the same question, and this question was originally designed just so that people could take a step back and realize what their first impression of the person they're watching may have been, and if on what scale of judgment they tend to make. I think that this question speaks so much more volumes now in how much prejudging is going on in the world, more so than I ever even thought as my motivation for doing these interviews. So, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think people's first impression of you is?
Um, so I'm not an open book, so usually the first impression is that I'm very quiet. Um, just in the various spaces that I take up in town, in Thousand Oaks, in Oxnard. That's usually the reading that I'm very quiet. Once you get me talking, I'm not that quiet, as my friends can attest to. But yeah, just a very reserved person, very quiet. Yeah.
Very cool. So, tell us your story that you want to tell. I don't want to make this about any questions I have till the end. So, just please share with us how things came to be for Sammy.
Okay, so I've kind of been thinking about like how I would tell the whole like Sammy story in one lane because there's a memoir in waiting. But kind of starting out in Thousand Oaks, growing up and then moving away to New York, where I kind of, caught my love for film, really. Um, that's where things kind of transitioned for me, kind of opened up my eyes for like the way the world works and everything. So college is a very interesting time for everyone, but especially that age range around the 18 to 22. For many people, it doesn't have to be that way for, especially as I'm doing this work. Not everybody has like straight 4 year um, college experience. Some people leave and come back and all that. But I, in line with the privilege that I did grow up with, had this regular 4 year experience. But in the middle of that, in 2008, I wanted to start a club back at CCNY, which is City College of New York. And, in 2008, the market crashed. So kind of financing that was not going to happen. So I kind of tucked this idea of a club that was for like mentorship of kids in Harlem, tucked it away. I ended up moving back to California and kind of pursuing filmmaking for a while. I wanted to go into film school. That didn't happen, so I pivoted into business school because what was always happening was that although my passion was directing and writing, I was a producer. So very business forward, had to hire everybody on set, interviewing every single person, needing to know every job on there. I'm like, well, I may as well just go into, I'm like, I'm not just a creative. Like I have business acumen, so why don't I formally go into it? So great idea. I love the fact that I have an MBA and that I formally kind of went through some business so that I don't just present as a creative to people because you get judged with the no judgment zone that you're providing. You do get judged as, oh, you have a film degree. Okay, that's great. What can you do in this corporate job though? Like we can't really trust you to know anything beyond cameras. Which obviously isn't the case if I'm hiring everyone on set and need to know everybody's job, fill in those blanks. Obviously, I didn't have enough money to have a full 200 crew production, so doing as much as we can with multiple hats. But from there, after my transition into marketing, I kind of really was wondering why I waited so long to start that idea of the mentorship. And just personally, it's been difficult to find a mentor on my own. So I kind of recognize that in other people, and especially the generation below me, Gen Z. Um, like, what are they doing to get mentors? And like, because I struggled, or you guys might be struggling too. And I don't know if social media is the easiest way to find that, or are you actively looking for that? So I wanted to create my own space where I could be providing this to people, providing scholarships, engaging parents in all of the exposure. So my foundation focuses on the arts and STEM, respectively, not just the educational term STEAM. I did have to differentiate there because I didn't want the arts to get lost in there. So arts and STEM. So I finally, with my sisters, filed the paperwork like right before February of 2018 and got everything situated. So it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was 10 years since, like, in Harlem trying to start a club that just didn't work out. And it's weird just how time flies. So since 2018, things have gone great, especially during quarantine. We pivoted our live events, which I love that we were able to do like a business expo for Black History Month, but we had plans to do a health summit live with everyone um, in person. Obviously, that is not going to happen. So last weekend, or early June, depending upon if anybody's watching this later, which we hope they do. Um, Early June, we decided to put together an event that was all virtual. So we started with meditation. It was just on my spirit to go ahead and start with some meditation to set the tone for the event. That was a very last minute decision, but it was very necessary. Um, we played games throughout, and then we had two panels. The first one was a fitness and nutrition panel, and then the second one was a mental health panel, which was very needed. So the whole event was just personally impactful. Uh, this is as much for the people I hope to serve as it is for me. It serves me. This is my passion. So I'm very happy to do this work.
It
So
sounds
yeah.
perfectly timed,
Yeah,
the
well,
event from
divine
last weekend.
timing is everything because I was telling people back in February, oh, we're doing a health summit in June. Stay in contact in case you want to be a vendor. Like I had already been, okay, getting this worked out to, okay, we're looking for venues. Something just didn't work out, and then Corona hit um, full time because it had already been hitting, but and back in February too. So probably if we knew what we know now, we probably shouldn't have had that live event because it was a month later and things were on shutdown. So very interesting how things roll out that way. But we've been able to pivot things virtually, which was an original idea anyway, to do things kind of like workshops and whatnot that people can access that don't have to be live. But it's been beneficial for us because we've opened it up to the whole country. So now I can have experts from anywhere who are able to participate with us.
My constraints are the same because everything I do for the interviews is all myself.
Hmm.
And I was limited in where I could get to have people that wanted to talk to me. And through the stay at home, I discovered doing the interviews this way.
Hmm.
And I've interviewed people from Mississippi and people in New York and places that I never would have been able to cross paths with them without some, like you said, great expense getting them to come and participate.
Hmm.
So I'm I just, like I said, I think that everything was perfect timing, especially with the topics that you covered and much needed.
Definitely.
Tell me a little bit about who your foundation targets.
It's definitely. So starting out with the awardees for those scholarships and mentorees would be students of color pursuing the arts. So that big umbrella of anyone in film, any type of arts, performing arts, so theater, all of that umbrella we have scholarships and mentors that will be geared towards that specifically. And then STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that umbrella, everything that falls under there. We definitely want to find mentors and mentors of color, so representation focus. So, not only are you getting an award based on being a person of color, but you also have a mentor who it might be difficult to find someone that's in your specific field, someone who is a programmer or software engineer. Like I know these people, but they might not be readily available, or they might not be, connected enough to say, "Hey, I want to mentor somebody." Or so the exposure there to these different fields under these huge umbrellas of different jobs that I don't even know about, or I just found out working at Yardi Systems. So like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. So just in my own learning experience, it helps for people to be exposed to these things. So in that exposure to students, don't want to just put it all on the student because they have to be proactive to find us or see us. My SEO, my search engine optimization has to be excellent. So I need to engage with the parents as well. So if we're starting in the home and making sure that parents know, hey, these jobs, these careers exist, and we're expanding beyond the 4 year approach. So it could be a highly specialized 2 year school, and they will be eligible for scholarships and mentorships. So we don't want to limit anything, especially if you can get a good job in a specific field and it only takes 2 years. You're still an engineer. Let's expose people to these opportunities and expand those horizons.
That's amazing. So what would be some of the criteria that people would have to meet, or are there specific things that there's a checklist for you?
We will be announcing that in October.
Oh, so I'm nosy.
We have a virtual gala, mentors and mimosas gala that we're going to announce all of this. So October 10th. This will not be the first time people hear about it, but yes, October 10th we have a virtual gala that we're planning, and we're going to be announcing all of our scholarships for 2021, which will be our first award year. So yeah, we're super excited to release all that criteria.
That's awesome. Okay, so I like mentorship and I like mimosas. I like
Yes,
so
everyone come on
October
down. Come on. Yes,
noted.
October. And you don't have to leave the house. It'll
That's awesome. So I get to pour my own mimosa
There we
even. I
go.
like
That
it.
even better. Free
Yeah, well,
refills.
I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. And please, when you post these events or when you have other events even before that one, if you could tag us,
Certainly.
tag I want to know your story, tag me,
Absolutely.
post it to our page on Facebook, tag in Twitter, wherever. I'd love to help get the word out. I think that, like I said, the vision in line so much with the things that I'm passionate about too.
Awesome.
So I think it's incredible.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Um, so, what would be something that would surprise people to know about you?
Well, I've kind of mentioned my film background. People might be surprised about my music background. So in between film and then the pivot to marketing and business, I became a full-on songwriter. And I was forcing myself to sing because I was tired of waiting for singers to just accept my work and then go ahead and sing it. So that worked out for demos. Um, Definitely going to stick with telling people songwriter. So music is definitely a passion of mine and has always been. So I was excited to explore that.
That's awesome. I love music. I'm really into lyrics of music,
Hmm.
regardless of the genre. They're either humorous to me, or entertaining, or heartfelt, or just really speak to something in your past or that you've experienced, and you can really connect with it. So I love all kinds of music.
Awesome.
Maybe not so much techno, but that's okay.
No
Doesn't really
judgment.
speak to me.
No judgment.
You talked about what the Ashe Academy does, and you talked about your path to it. Kind of tell me what really drove it. I know you mentioned that you kind of were in a situation where you had felt you had some advantages and were able to take advantage of your opportunities. Was there something that you saw along your path that made you feel that there was a need, or was it just woke up one day and said, I need to do this?
Well, I love that you're asking this because we actually have some difficult conversations that we have scheduled, like some panel discussions, especially on tokenism. So, being the only Black person for the most part in Thousand Oaks, whenever I'm in school, aside from my sister, whenever we're in like high school together, we're one of very few. So many times I'm either the representative for my community or just like one of very few, and then the only exposure people have to a Black person. So I definitely saw that in professionally as well, where I was the only Black person in the room, one of very few in the whole company. So not saying anything bad on these companies, just saying that this is just a situation. I've been in multiple situations. So I definitely wanted to look back and kind of, if it's an issue of access, if it's just an issue of exposure, I want to help kind of bridge that gap and figure out what solutions I, with my own company, because they people also asked when I was just like filing, it's like, hey, I'm starting a nonprofit. Oh, well, like why don't you just donate to someone else that's out there? Like I have a unique experience and outlook on things, and I want to make my mark. So that's exactly why. So 2018 was just like, stop waiting, because there's also the thing like, okay, when I have X, Y, and Z and the rest of the alphabet in line, then I can go ahead and start a project. I was never like that in film. I would work during the week and then on the weekend shoot a film or plan for a film or interview somebody. So I've been a very busy person. I don't, if I do have a lot of downtime, it's to rest from all of the nonstop going like that. I have to constantly working on projects. So this has definitely facilitated that whole uh, need for something busy, and yeah, I've been very busy, especially during quarantine.
I'm the same way. I feel like, and tell me if you're like this, but I feel like for me, the more I have on my plate, the more organized I am.
Hmm.
Where if
Exactly.
I don't have a lot going on, I'm like, oops, I was supposed to do that. Sorry. It's
So
so
you took a
bad.
nap. Oh, I was not supposed to take a nap. I was supposed to be at a meeting, or yeah.
Yeah,
So
I just find that if I have a schedule and I'm
mhm,
going from one thing to the next, as exhausting as it may make me, it also stimulates my brain and makes me function better in those tasks.
exactly. Yeah,
So
we
I
planned
totally feel you.
six discussions right after that summit. Like, okay, now we got to get going on the next project. So there is no downtime, and there's always work to do. So that's why I don't like having nothing to do because there's somebody out there to help.
Yep.
So
Well, and in response to what you said about what made you kind of do this and go down this road and kind of what you were seeing in the landscape of the environments that you were in, I kind of agree with you. I feel like a lot of it is exposure
mhm,
because I feel like potentially people aren't necessarily aware of the opportunities that they have outside of their situation. And
exactly.
so I think that applies to anybody, right? And you feel that you can only be as successful as your limitations.
Yeah,
And I think that if people just had the tools and the power and like you said, someone that could mentor them and explain to them that there is endless opportunity for them and
exactly.
there are definitely means to get it even though you feel you don't have it. um, I think that's really important. You know, where you've been, coast to coast, really, and the situations that you've seen and want to grow from and help put others in, I think is commendable. And I'm so excited about the Ashe Academy. I hope you know that, and I'm
I
not just saying
appreciate
that
that
to cover
so
up being the
much.
creepy lady at the Starbucks.
Back to something you mentioned with your counselor kind of telling you about all those grants. We also want to be a dedicated resource. So our funds are going to be limited just by how many grants we can get and how many donors we have. So we definitely want to make sure that once people do get to our network, they're able to access any other resources that are similarly targeted or they can access as well. So this will be from all of those scholarships that do similar populations, as well as job postings. And we definitely want to do some career mentoring as well. So not just your academia.
I
So
think it's
yeah,
awesome.
so
I
yeah,
think it is so awesome.
appreciate
And
it.
so now you've mentioned a couple times your sister. So your family's involved in the Ash Academy as well.
Yes, yes. So Natasha, my middle sister, is the CFO, and then Crystal, youngest sister, is the COO.
You have a very
So
close knit family, I assume.
yes, so it's been very interesting to work with family. I will say that it has been a growing experience for all of us. Just because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that, oh, you thought you had all the paperwork in and there's something else to do. Running a business in general, like there's not enough schooling to just tell you all that could happen. Like there's just not. So it's we've definitely had an interesting time stepping up to the plate. Because there's a higher calling on to us for this as well. So it's not just, oh, yeah, we're having fun. We do these events. Like, there's more to it than that. And then my parents are very supportive every step of the way, each event we have. If you were on the health summit, you heard both of my parents calling in, playing the games. So it's just been really great to create this legacy, and they're all here to see it. So I've been very happy to experience all of these, ups and the necessary downs, all with my family.
I love that though, and I love that they're supportive. I know with this was a project I wanted to do for 2 years, and I started filming in September, aired the first interview November 6th, and I think my
Awesome.
parents have watched every single one of them. So I and they get so excited and they think it's just so wonderful. And again, it's all for me. My fiance tells me it's because I'm nosy, but it's just because I am so interested in what drives other people, and I understand that we're all so different, but we still are so the same. I
Exactly.
mean, look at you and I have so many of the same visions. for people
Hmm.
and wants for people to be
Exactly.
successful. And I never would have known you if I didn't need an iced tea at that exact moment.
So, and that's another thing, kind of just working up to this interview, like all of the chance meetings that I've had with people who have aligned somewhere that played a part. Like one of my like songwriting partners, he knew a graphic designer who ended up doing the logo. And I love the logo so much that every time I talk to him, like, hey, I really do appreciate like like we have having a logo in the first place means so much to me. So all these little things, like I end up crying randomly at different events, and it's just like, okay, Sammy, like, okay, but no, it's very much a part of, especially if you've been meditating over something for 10 years, um, when things are successful, like an event, finally getting through an event and it was a successful event, that impacts me. Like I'm so thankful to be able to do something positive for my community.
I totally get that. And the feelings knowing that you did it and you're putting something good out,
Yes.
which is overwhelming.
Exactly.
Well,
And I'm
that's
not doing this
awesome.
alone. I have to make sure that we have panel discussions. There's a lot of people that opt in, and every time someone says yes, it just warms my heart. Because, we're only 2.5 years old, so the trust factor comes in. It's like, okay, I appreciate that you trust us enough to share your expertise with us. So,
Well, and even though you're only 2.5 years old, I have a feeling there's a long future for the Ashe Academy
and
ahead of you.
we are very
And
hopeful of that.
oh, I'm confident that this
Appreciate
is
that.
going to be amazing. It is much needed. I think that from what I saw, and like I said, doing research for things that I am interested in the same lines,
Mhm.
I saw a lot of things, but I think the visibility is very low, and
Yeah,
they're pieces of what you're trying to do, and the whole of what you're trying to do is incredible. And I wish you
appreciate that.
all the best with it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So, before I ask my closeout question, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about Sammy now that we're cool like that and we can call you Sammy?
No, I think I'm good. I just appreciate you giving me a platform to discuss, my passion, the Ash Academy.
Absolutely. So, if there was a time where you were walking down the street in any of the scenarios actually that you described in situations that you find yourself in, and there were people passing you by, and you could hold up a sign that told people one thing about Sammy, what is it you would want them to know?
Ooh,
I wish I could roll back like clips of every time I ask this question. I get the
it's
same.
like a master cut
Oh.
of the ooh. One thing that I wish everyone would know, that I care.